Your stories don't define you. How you tell them will. Hi, I'm Sarah Elkins, your host and chief storymaker of Elkins Consulting. Many of my clients reach out to me because they're in transition. Their children are hitting milestone ages. They want more from their work. They're hitting a big number birthday. And they want to develop clarity about their natural strengths, what their next adventure might look like. In this series, you'll hear me ask my guests questions to dig deeply into the stories that shaped their lives, stories that uncover patterns and may unveil insights into dissatisfaction, and also where their strengths lie and where they found and continue to find joy. This podcast's intention is to have listeners think of their own related stories and how they tell them, discovering the internal messages that are limiting their success, and discovering how to shift their stories so they become positive life lessons to move them forward. If you're curious about what it would be like to work with me, visit elkinsconsulting.com and schedule a one-time 90-minute StrengthsFinder session. What a treat. Oh my gosh. I get to interview the Jane Evans today on Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Tell Them Will. And I love, love, love how she describes herself as a champion of midlife women, because I feel like this is such a critical time for us. It has always been a critical time, midlife, especially in women. But now more than ever, we are in a position where we can and must make an impact on the world around us, because no one else is going to do it in the way that we can.
I couldn't agree with you more. It is the most powerful time in our lives. And also, the world has never seen a generation of women like us before. It was, I joke I've been middle-aged since I was 35, because when I was 35, my life expectancy was 70. I'm now about to approach 60, and apparently if I'm really healthy, I could last to 120. So I haven't even got there yet. So we've got a first generation of women that are actually going to, live longer. And the great thing is it's not tacked on the end. It's actually put in the middle. Now, add that to the fact that, our generation is the first generation who had rights in the workforce. In the UK, prior to 1975, there were probably five careers open to me, all of which I would have to give up when I got married. And I don't think people realize that, the month that Bohemian Rhapsody became number one was when we got equal rights. And you don't even have it in the Constitution yet. So,
No.
And so we now have a generation of women between the ages of 45 and 70. And I classify midlifers between 45 and 70 because it's the end of fertility, from the end of fertility to the end of our careers. Because if we're going to be living till 90 or 100, we are going to be working till we're 70, unless we're incredibly lucky. So, we're now, and so for the first time ever, we've got a bunch of women that are healthy, are educated, are experienced, and if we come together, the power that we get from coming together, not only for us, but as a sisterhood of women altogether, it was, the amount of supporters that we have from younger women that are all of a sudden realizing just how recent we are, that that we didn't get rights back with the suffragettes, that that was like their mum's friends were the ones that did it. Yes. They have a tremendous amount of respect for what we've done, an incredible amount of sympathy for what has happened to us. And again, I think younger people are looking at what's happened to us, and a very, very, very dangerous precedent has been set. And that precedent has been around since the start of time, that once a woman is no longer fertile, she has no further use. Well, that was before this new generation. We've now got a generation of women that are so useful, that have got so much to give to the world, and can actually come together and start saying, each of us individually, I feel more powerful than I've ever felt before. I feel more confident than I've ever felt before. I don't know what your policy on swearing is, but we've got no fucks left to give. Absolutely zero, none. None. And it was like, most of us, by the time we've reached this point of our life, have experienced so much on both ends of the spectrum, from joy to agony. We have lived through it, so we don't sweat the small stuff anymore. We're really here for the big issues. Mm-hmm. And again, in America, Roe versus Wade. Hello. I mean, there should be.
Don't even. I'm so sickened.
Women should be absolutely up in arms. And, and I say to, I do speeches over here and I'm going, we need to be supporting our sisters in the States. We need to be shouting as loud about this as they are, because, it's ingrained misogyny and the patriarchy trying to fight in its last gasps of breath. It really should be if we all come together, if we all put our differences aside, because, again, at our age, we have no illusion that we're all the same sort of women. And it was like, let's all come together and let's really fight. Let's use our anger, channel it, and, let the world know that we're here and we're not taking any of this rubbish anymore.
You are speaking my language, Jane, and I knew you would. I'd like to get back a little bit, because I always start these conversations with a question about something that is something about you that most people don't know. And now that we've kind of immediately dived into the meat of our conversation, I'm guessing that this question is even more relevant for you. Right now.
It's hilarious. My one's very funny. Okay. I turned down a date, a blind date with Bill Gates. It was 1983. I was 21 years old, drop dead gorgeous, and working on a little account that nobody else wanted to work on, which was this tiny little startup in Virginia Water, and for Microsoft Word version 1. And so I would go out to the client meetings, and back then, geeks, had never seen sunlight. I mean, they were like the geekiest of geeks. And I don't think they'd ever actually spoken to a woman before. And so, this gorgeous ad girl keeps on coming in and presenting ideas to them. They were all like agog. And none of them had the guts to ask me out, but they were like, our boss is coming on Thursday. Would you like to go out for dinner with him? And I was like, no, not really. Oh, but he's a 27-year-old millionaire. And I was like, sorry.
Still.
No, I was going out with an underwear model that night. It was like, there was no way I was going out with a millionaire geek. And I do regret that a little bit. I wish I had, the underwear model has disappeared off into nowhere. But yeah, I think Bill Gates would have been a very interesting date.
Well, you were 21. How many of us made decisions like that at 21 or 20 years old, where we made the decision that was right in that moment? But, thinking that far ahead, how could we possibly? Why would we?
I gave a speech once, which was like, like you had to 7 minutes and just show slides. And it was like, and I showed a picture of Bill Gates at the time, and everybody in the audience is going, oh, no. And then I went, this is the guy I went out with. And they go, oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. We'd have done
totally
exactly
understand
the same. I totally understand.
Isn't it funny, though, what I've noticed? One of the things that popped into my head as you were talking at the very beginning was how different I'm seeing younger women with each other than what I experienced as a young woman. So what I'm saying is the women that I know who are in their mid-20s now are far more supportive of each other than I experienced when I was in my 20s. I remember just not really having a lot of women friends. I had, a couple that I trusted, but in general, most of my friends were men. And now I see these women in their mid-20s truly supporting each other and supporting me as a woman in my 50s in a way that I think this is a really big change in our generational interactions.
I think that's got an awful lot to do with the fact that, again, the patriarchy, one of their greatest tricks is putting women in competition with each other. And they have been doing that, since, and especially when we first got into the workforce. It was like there was one woman in every agency for us, and it was like when one left, there was sort of like the move around. So we never actually got to see each other because there were so few of us. We were dotted around, so we couldn't, we didn't have that ability. But I think also, this generation of 25-year-olds, they are the first generation or the majority have grown up with working mums. So all of a sudden they have a real genuine understanding of who we are and what we've been through. And so, and again, it was like I keep on saying to people, stop judging us between us and our mothers. Like, we had to rebel against our mothers. I mean, my mum just wanted me to marry my mother actually moved me to the equivalent of a town of West Point so that I could marry an army captain. And that was like, we actually moved to Sandhurst, which was,
so that you could get your MRS.
So I could find my captain and, and off I go. So we had to, I had to rebel so hard against my mother, just purely because the way I was brought up and the world that I was brought up in was very, very different to hers. Interestingly, not that different from my grandmother, who was my great supporter, because she was, she worked in the war. She was, she was part of the war effort. She was, absolutely. So, it was a very interesting time. But, these younger women, there's nothing new about women working. They've seen all of the struggles that their mother has gone through. And I certainly know with my daughters, we are the bestest of friends. I had a lovely example. My daughter had a ticket to a gig, and she knew that I loved the artist. And it was a really quite obscure, Tamino his name was. It was quite an obscure sort of Belgian Arab artist, but I loved his music. And so, like, my really cool, singer-songwriter, potential star daughter is like taking me to this really, really cool gig. And I'm like, I'm so chuffed about it.
Awesome.
Anyway, I'm in the queue, and literally the woman in front of me is with her really cool 19-year-old daughter. And I'm like, wow, did everybody bring their mum? And literally down the line, they went, yep, I'm here. Yep, here's mine. I brought my mum.
Wow. You would not have seen that when I was in my 1920s. No way.
Absolutely not. And again, they steal my clothes. I mean, I wouldn't have dreamt of wearing anything. I wouldn't have even looked in my mother's wardrobe. Now I have to put certain items under lock and key, or it was like, you can wear that once a year on a special occasion and you have to fill in a form.
Well, I have to give a shout out to my mother, because when I graduated from college, I was 23. I was on the 5-year plan. She came to Fort Collins from California to go to my graduation. And she and my dad actually came to the bar that night where we had the downstairs of a well-known college hangout reserved for a group of us for a few hours before the big night on Saturday night. And both of my parents came down. My dad covered the bill at the bar for a little while. And we were doing shots together. We did lemon drop shots together. My parents had been divorced at that point, but my mom and I and my dad are standing next to my good friends that are just ridiculously silly, and we're all doing shots together. So I just had to give a little shout out to my mom. I would not have picked anything from her wardrobe. I mean, I'm not going to go that far. However, she could hold her own when she wanted to, and when she felt connected to something that was going on. So I just had to put that little shout out in, because she's pretty amazing.
Oh, look, our mums were amazing. But they were a product of their time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it was like they were a product of what they were brought up with. So my mother was like, my mother wanted to wrap me up in cotton wool. I mean, me going into the workforce, she was terrified for me. I mean, it was like she knew I was going into a battle, and she didn't want me to go and do that battle. Why was I doing that?
Right. You're going to get hurt. It's going to hurt.
You're going to get hurt, darling. Why? Leave that to the boys. You don't want to play that game. And it was like, well,
yeah, kind of do.
If everybody has that attitude, none of us are going to get through, Mum. It was like, do you really think I'm going to be a teacher, a nurse, or a beautician? Really? Come on.
Let's not go there. Oh, no. But, so I want to go back. She did make me
do a secretarial course. Sorry. She did make me do a secretarial course, though, just in case.
Just in case this fell through and you needed, something else to do before you got your MRS. I have to ask you, your mother moves you to this town where you're going to meet the captain of your dreams. And was that for high school? Was that for a couple of years of high school? What time of your life was that?
I think I was 11 when we moved there, so she
Oh,
was very definitely. So we'd moved. My father had lost his job. We lived up in Liverpool, so my father had lost his job, and the only job that he could get was in London. So the family had to move. So basically, it was like, okay, well, here's where Dad's office is. Where around that, where's the commute? Where are we going to live?
right.
And yes, my mother's was like, well, let Sandhurst is the place because that's where the military academy is.
Do you remember your first interaction with some of those soldiers?
Oh, she had one that she had lined up from me from high school. She knew that he was going there, and she was like, he was the head boy at school. Absolutely no way on this planet was I going out. It was punk. I was going out with a punk. I didn't want, I didn't want some straight laced soldier. I wanted a bad boy.
So tell me about this punk. Did you bring him home?
Oh well, they were all pretty much they were all pretty much punks. Again, it was like punk was a really short time, so that was 14
Right.
to 16 was when I was looking at those. But yeah, after that it was night clubbing and discos and the works. But yeah, it was I and also for me, I was very determined that I was going to have my own career, make my own money. And the man that I chose, I would choose out of love, not because he was an army captain or because he was tall
Right.
or because he
Where
was
do you think that came from? Like what was
Oh,
the
my father was a
motive?
captain in the army. My father was a
No, but
captain,
I
so she
mean
was based.
your drive, your
Oh,
decision
my drive.
to not be
Um.
your mother. What was, I mean,
Oh, look,
I
I
know what
think.
mine was. I'm curious what yours was.
I think mine started at 3 years old. So, like, my brother went to school. And my brother's 2 years older than me. My mother would walk him to school, and I would scream for the next 8 hours, going, I want to go. Like, I would be at those school gates every single day, screaming, going, let me go to school. I want to go to school. And in fact, it was so bad that the school actually let me go at 4 rather than 5. And it was the 60s. I mean, my Christmas presents was an ironing board so that I could sit and iron with my mother. And I think at 3 years old, I had decided that this was not life and this was very, very boring. And, Monday was washing day. Tuesday was ironing day. Wednesday was cleaning the brass. Thursday was hoovering. Friday was shopping. I mean, I was just like, I think I was bored by the time I was 3. And yeah, my Christmas presents were little ironing boards and irons.
And so watching your brother go to school was like, oh, there's a way out of this. I could do something
yeah.
different. You think that was it?
Oh, absolutely. I was bored stupid until I could go to school. And then, I don't know. I think from a very, very young age, there was a feeling of there's a lot more to this world than what I'm being offered at the moment.
So your older brother clearly influenced you. Who was the other person? I don't know if it was a man or a woman that you connected with in a way that was like, oh yeah. And now that you look back, you may not have known.
Okay, so all right. So I had, as you've probably guessed, I had the absolute classic 1960s housewife mother. Of which, I really genuinely thought I had been born into the wrong family. Everybody in my family played golf. I hated it. I couldn't stand the fact that all these people, our whole lives was revolved around golf. That's all they talked about. I mean, I really did seriously think I'd been born. I swapped at the. I mean, I was born at home, so I couldn't have been swapped at the hospital. But it was like if I had, I'd probably been starting an investigation. And then all of a sudden, one day, a moving truck came in next door, and this beautiful black goddess got out of the car. And I remember my father over my shoulder going, there go the property values. And this amazing woman moved in next door to us. Anyway, to cut a long story short, she became very, very good friends with my mum, and they became absolutely inseparable. And this woman, she was absolutely, so she started off, basically she found out that there were no books with black children in them or any racial diversity of books. She went to the library and all she could find was Gollywogs and Enid Blyton.
Right.
And so she set up England's first a diverse publishing company for children. And so I basically watched her do that from her kitchen table. And, you know, one of the lovely stories is after my mum died, I came back to the UK. It was probably about 3 years after my mum had died. And I went to visit Verna, and she told me a story that I'd never, ever heard before. And apparently one day my mum had gone round there and she goes, I finally worked it out. She said, Jane's not my daughter. And Verna was like, what are you talking about? And Verna went, she's yours. And to me, that was like my mum coming from the grave, basically saying to me, I understand. It was like the universe actually, you know, she was your spiritual mum. She was the one that's going to drive you. She's the one that, you know, it was almost like the universe went, this, you know, this child hasn't got what it needs.
Right. We're going to put this woman right next door to influence.
Put this woman right next door. And again, you know, the magical thing about this is, you know, when I went to the National Film and Television School to study screenwriting, the woman came and sat next to me, and at lunch, you know, I made the typical white girl mistake of, do you know my black friend? Of which, you know, you could see Carol's eyes about to roll into the back of her head. You know, you can see, and I'm just sitting there going, oh my God,
I just said that out loud.
And then Carol just went, oh my God, yes, I do. And, you know, and it was Carol and I wrote our book together. So, you know, Carol and I, and now Carol and I have the same relationship that Verna had with my mum. And so it's just, you know, a beautiful synchronicity. But yeah, she is my absolute idol, goddess, everything. So
Verna what? What's her last name? Let's
Verna
hold on.
Wilkins.
Verna Wilkins.
And she was the owner of Tamarind Publishing. I think it got bought out a few years ago. You know, she's you know, an older lady now. But yeah, she sold out. But yeah, she had a book her books were in the curriculum of British schools. You know, she was amazing, a real trailblazer.
I love that. I got a chill when you said that about your mother saying that Jane was Verna's and not hers. That's I got a chill because I so truly believe that the universe puts certain people and experiences in our paths to help guide us to where we need to be, where we can make the most impact.
And I think the great thing about being at our ages is that we can start seeing those patterns. And,
yes.
You know, and again, one of the advantages that we have is, you know, add patterns with experience, add empathy to that. And all of a sudden, you know, you can actually start to see where everything starts to fit together. So, you know, and again, growing older, our brains actually change that way. It was like, you know, we have dendrites in our brain that keep on growing. And so what happens as we get older, they actually start reaching parts of our brains that they hadn't reached before. And so we actually can start to see the whole forest rather than just the individual trees. And we can actually start to see how things fit together more. And I think that's a great skill that the world needs a lot more of.
Yes. Well, I was just thinking that I feel like I found my voice at 40. I feel like it was a time in my life I had started singing professionally for the first time in my life, had started singing in a rock band, and not just any rock band, a 60s surf and Western rock band, wearing go-go boots and mini dresses. And in this little town in Montana, and people loved us. Our fans would get dressed up in 60s gear and come to our gigs and dance with me. And I tell people that I found my voice at 40. And when you think about your 40s, I think this is a really critical transformational time is our 40s. And I know it's all transformational, but it seems like the 40s are when those dendrites start to reach the nether regions of our brain that we're kind of quiet until then. What do you think of that? Like, where would you go with that?
As I would say for me, it happened more in my 50s than my 40s. Oh. So for me, the end of menopause was an absolute revelation. So to actually, you know, and again, I sort of, you know, I say to people, it was, you know, somebody said to me, oh, you must have felt younger again. It was like, no, I felt 10 again. And it was like, I'd had so, you know, we have so many chemicals and things running through our bodies from the age of 12 until, you know, the end of menopause, that, and I got to the end of it and it was like, whoa, is this how this operating system would have worked without all of that stuff? Because this is amazing. My confidence was through the roof. My creativity was through the roof. And this wonderful androgyny. It was like I no longer felt as though I had to be pretty. It was like there was no sexual tension in business meetings anymore. And also this sort of sense of there isn't actually any societal rule as to what I should look like as a midlife woman. So I'm going to choose how I want to look. I'm going to, and have my wardrobe, my style, everything like that is far more gutsy than at any other stage in my life, because I think in the back of my head or in my biology or in my psyche somewhere was, I'm a pretty girl or I'm an attractive woman. I've got to dress like an attractive woman would. So there was no piercings. There was no, spiky hair. There was no outlandish, jackets or shoes or boots or whatever. And actually being able to create my own style, my own personality. It was like a time of absolute, complete reinvention. And I think that is so powerful. Again, we've just done this course where we trained 100 women in digital media. And one of them, when she was going out to get a job, she was like, I feel like I'm 16 and I've just left school and I'm starting my career again. And I think this happens so much for women, is this realization of, okay, halfway point, stop. What do I do? Shall I retrain? Can I start again? Because there's plenty of time to go and, you could start. And again, we've just employed 18 women to completely start their careers again from scratch. It was like, 94% of the women on the course hadn't worked for 5 years. And we were going to train them in jobs that didn't exist 5 years ago. So if it didn't exist 5 years ago, you're at the same stage as anybody that started, was doing their A-levels 5 years ago.
Right.
So, you can actually go in and do these training courses, but, you've got all the soft skills that those kids don't have. And so, these women have just absolutely killed it. And just to see I've had a really fantastic career, but, no award or accolade or anything I have done in my career is anywhere near the joy of a woman ringing you up going, I'm working, I've got a job, I never believed it, I couldn't have done it without you. Just this sense of, I've actually changed somebody's life. And to change 18 women's lives is just, I usually hate people when they use the word humbling, but this one actually is. This is really, really humbling.
Mm-hmm. You think about the ripple effect of 18 women working, being models, role models for other women, younger women, older women, women who thought they couldn't do something, that now they're seeing their friend or mother or sister or aunt doing something so completely different, transforming their lives. That's a ripple effect that you can't possibly quantify.
It's even more important than that is that we've got the Great Resignation. Okay, so there is such a staff shortage out there. It is unbelievable. And my belief is that during lockdown, women who've been told, this is how life works. You go to university, you choose your subject, you go and find a job, then you go and find a man, you try and get as high in your career as you possibly can. Then you have your children, and hopefully you've got high enough that you can have your kids. Then you have a little bit of maternity leave, and then you go back, and then you try and be Superwoman. And I think, these women is just like, that's the way it is. And I think lockdown, all of a sudden they went, oh, hold on a minute. There is actually another way. And I think that what happened was, I think they started spending more time with their kids because they couldn't send them anywhere else. They couldn't send them off to their mums. They couldn't send them off to school. So they were forced to do it. And I think first of all, they recognized just how much the kids loved having her around. I think that they started to do the maths on how much it was actually costing for her to go to work, and was it actually worth it? Because, again, people were starting looking, going, well, hold on a minute, I'm not paying for train fares, I'm not getting my hair done, I'm not getting my nails done, I'm not buying a new suit every month, I'm not, I'm not buying a lunch every day, I'm not buying 2 coffees a day, and started to actually look at and also, and of course, the childcare is,
Right,
all
the
of a sudden
cost
we're
of
not
childcare.
paying that massive amount of childcare. And I think they actually had a year of their lives to live and went, this isn't actually making any difference to us. And
Right.
and I'm enjoying being around the kids, and I think the kids are enjoying being around us.
And do you
And
think
so,
the other half of the equation has to be that there were also women that realized they wanted to go back to work, that raising kids wasn't what they wanted to be doing after a year of going, oh my gosh, I thought I wanted to be an at-home mom. I thought this is something that I would want to do. And being able to have that conversation and acknowledging that that's okay too. I think that's a huge part
absolutely.
of this conversation.
Absolutely. But a third of all mothers either left their jobs or scaled it back. A
Right.
third of all
Right.
mothers.
But
So now we're in a
not necessarily because they didn't love their jobs, but
no,
because they had to balance things and realize that
because they had to
the
balance.
priorities were
Yeah,
changing. Yes,
priorities
they
were
needed the
changing.
flexibility.
They needed the flexibility. But
Mhm.
what we've found now is that we've now lost a generation of women. Now, we lost my generation of women through the next round of redundancies. Every woman over the age of 45 goes, boom, gone.
Right.
We're now going to lose that generation of women, or have a massive chunk out of that group of women in their who are in their 30s to 40s
Mhm.
now. And there are massive shortages. Now, what I'm saying is we need to start redesigning women's careers. The sweet spot of 35 for a career is absolute sheer cruelty for a woman, and our biology does not suit it. It suits a man's biology at 35. He's about to lose his hair. He's probably going from playing football to playing golf. He's on he's hit his
Right.
height, and now on a very slow decline. Now, what you find with women is that it was like at 35 they're actually at a height for childbirth, whether they choose to or not. They're still full of all the chemicals,
Right.
and then but we need to design women's careers so they can plateau and then rise, plateau and then rise, plateau and then rise,
Yes.
because men are never going to take over the 90% of emotional work. It was like, and actually, I don't think many of us would want them to either. It was, really, they're not very good at it. It was like, we're really good at that stuff. So allow us the space to be able to do that and have careers as well. So,
Yes.
if you start looking at a woman who's 45 plus, it was like, I mean, again, my friends, we're all empty nesters now. It's fantastic.
Right.
And, we've got all the time in the world. People are like, Jane, how the hell do you do what you've done in the last few years? Like, my kids are in their early 20s. It was like, they've just gone. It was like all of that time and all of that brain space and everything that was there has just disappeared. And now I have the
Hmm.
time to explore what's in my brain. All of those things that I wanted to do but never had the time, all of a
Right.
sudden I can start doing them. And I find with all of my friends, we're all the same. It's like, we're setting up businesses, we're doing this, we're doing that, this burst of energy, traveling, doing amazing, designing the second halves of our lives. So now we have to get business to understand that
Yes.
we need to be designing women's careers. So the
I
answer to the
never,
talent crisis, the answer to
right.
the answer to the talent crisis is to bring midlife women back. So the women that have left their careers can actually see that they can pick them up again and start again at 45. We need to show younger women that they don't have to be in such a rush all the time. Because again, it was like I say, you can have everything, just not all at
Not at the
once.
same time.
That's right. And if we allow women the ability to have choice, I mean, for me, it was always about choice. Feminism is always about choice. So every woman should be able to have whatever choice she wants to make. So, we shouldn't find that only the women that chose not to have children are the ones that make it up to the board, or the ones that have amazing support systems are the only ones that can go the whole way. We've got to make it. Otherwise, we're just going to have if we don't allow it, we're going to have a world bred by idiots. It was like, intelligent women need to be having and raising children. So we have to build the
Mhm.
environment that allow us, if that's our choice, if that's what we want to do, we should be allowed to be good mothers. And again, one of the things that we do is we don't just moan. We have, things to fix this, and there are plenty of ways of fixing this problem. And, again, midlife women are the key. And, we should be, right, come on, everybody, get your armor on. The participation of women in the paid workforce is back to 1980s levels. So all of us who started our careers in our 80s need to get back in there and do what we did the first time, which is pave the way back for women behind us. But again, one of the things that we found is these women have been so discriminated against that ageism is so... even they are ageist because it's so societal that they don't, and again, they have, doing this course, these women are like, oh my God, I'm being ageist against myself, aren't I? It was like, yes, it's that ingrained in society that even we do it to ourselves. And so, and so just sort of saying, oh, well, we'll just get midlife women back. No, that's not enough. These women need to be reassured. They've had the stuffing knocked out of them by life. Most of them. It was like, anybody that's had a career break has, been a partner dying, a child sick, special needs kids, almost always something out of their control. And so, a lot of these women they need a bit of loving before they can be put back into the workforce. And again, a lot of them, if they left a long time ago, they left because of horrendous sexual harassment. They left because of, absolutely horrendous sexism. So when they then get that added on top of that ageism, they're so cynical and angry. Many of them are angry. Many of them are cynical. And so many of them are like, I can't believe the world has changed. And we're going, it has. It's like these younger women are now in the workforce going, we need to get our sisters back. Where are our role models? Where are the women we're looking up to? Mm-hmm. Who are we going to become?
I love that. I never thought about the idea that at 45 or 50, you're really at the sweet spot. I mean, I never put that together, that this is the perfect time to explore a transformation in your career, because you still have another 20 years to devote to learning and growth and contributing. I just see, I've known that, but I never put it together quite like that. And it's part of why I created this Discovering Clarity course for women in this transitory place in their lives where they're trying to figure out what to do next because they're dissatisfied where they are. So as we turn this full circle and wrap up a little, I would love to hear more about that program. If you're going to offer it again, I know a lot of our listeners will be very curious to look into what this is and how to find you. So and for our listeners' sake, don't worry. We will have all this in the show notes on the blog post associated with this podcast at elkinsconsulting.com. But let's hear it straight from Jane.
Okay. So the Visible Star, it's basically the Uninvisibility movement, which is what I've run. We've been running that since 2019, which is basically championing midlife women. In September in 2020, Mark Reed, who's the worldwide chairman of WPP, which is one of the world's largest media groups, was misquoted, but also misspoke, saying that all of his staff were under the age of 30 and didn't hark back to the 80s, luckily, which caused absolute furore. I mean, the share price went down. It was that bad. It was like he was attacked from high. And so I basically all week did a social media campaign going, Mark Reed, we want to talk to you. Mark Reed, we want to talk to you. Mark Reed, we want to talk to you. And to his credit, he did actually pick up the phone. And when he got off the end of the phone, it was like, that was not the conversation I was expecting. And I gave him a pitch, and I basically said, these jobs have not existed before. Your competitors take the best kids from the best schools. Why don't we train midlife women? The best school is the school of life. Let's train midlife women. He absolutely bought it like a shot. I mean, it was just like a revelation to him. It was absolutely, greenlit from the moment like it came out of my mouth practically. So we started a pilot course. We had 300 women apply, and all you had to be was a woman over the age of 45. It was a completely free course. It was an 8-week course. We had 300 women apply, and we had 100 that actually completed the course. And we started it with confidence building, transferable skills, brand me, who is your brand building. So the first part of the course was all about developing them, making them feel welcome. And you could see, they started out, they were all on Zoom, and it was like all their cameras were off. And then you could start to see, each one, there were cameras. And by the end, it was, everybody was, wide open. And off that, we set up a thing called the Visible Society, which is a place where women who are designing the second halves of their lives can basically meet, support each other. We run all the courses off there. We run job opportunities off there. We do all of that. So our first pilot, we've just got 18 women employed at WPP agencies. And we've still got 14 people interviewing. So we're hoping to get at least 30 women employed off the first program.
Wow.
We're now looking at taking, so WPP have just signed on the line to do another one for next year. It was such a great success for them. We're also talking to other agency holding groups for digital marketing roles where there are massive skill shortages, and we can train these women up. Then we're also talking to banks, we're talking to recruitment companies, there are so many jobs out there that people are desperate to fill, that basically what we're going to do is we're basically going to bolt our course onto their training programs. Here's our course. We've got the course. We've got the community. We look after all of the women. And filter them through to you. And so we're growing that. We're actually, we've got a team in the States that we're just starting to look at how do we actually grow this in the States as well. So I think we're aiming that this year that we'll do 4 industries. So HR, banking, life sciences, and digital media. And we want global domination. We want to get as many women actually believing in themselves. And if they've never worked before, or if they want a complete change of career, we will train you in the jobs that didn't exist 5 years ago, that you and go after entry level jobs that you'll be going against university grads. Well, your life skills are just going to blow them out of the water. And, but we can't only do that without having the culture change as well, because if you don't have the culture change, some of the women in the first course, when they went outside of the agencies that were training them, still faced the same horrendous discrimination to their face, because it's so ageism is so acceptable. And so, again, these women have an army behind us. We are making a movement to change the narrative. That's, we have the book Invisible to Invaluable, which again is coming out in the States on June the 28th. So, and you can actually get it on audiobook or Kindle right now, or if you want to wait for the beautiful gold, lovely, valuable book, it will be there on June the 28th, which is a manifesto and a rallying cry. So, it was like, this isn't just a tick box exercise to get midlife women working again. This is an army with battalions all around the world that are basically wanting our generation to have the careers and the retirements that we deserve. Because at the moment in the UK, we have half the pension savings of men, and 48% of us have no savings at all. And if we don't work for the next 20 to 30 years, we're going to face a place where half of our women will retire in poverty. And that is just not acceptable. And the thing is, it's a rush. We've got to do this now. Every year that ticks past, we lose another, God knows how many million women that are going to fall off are going to retire in poverty, or have to work for the rest of their lives doing, caring minimum wage jobs, because that's all they'll get.
Oh, I'm inspired. That's amazing. I love this. I love how you energize your speaking with the way that you speak about this. So Jane, our people people listen from all over the world to this podcast. So we will have access to what you're offering, depending on where it is, of course. And I know that people in the US will be eager to get a hold of that book. And it's called Invisible to Invaluable.
Invisible to Invaluable. Unleashing the Power of Midlife Women. And it's written by me and Carol Russell. Carol, and basically, my background is, midlife woman in the advertising industry. She's a midlife Black woman in the entertainment industry. So again, we get a really, one of the things that we've said about our movement is it has to be for all women. This isn't just another one of those white middle-class feminist savior fucking complexes. The inclusivity is absolutely in the heart of our manifesto and everything that we do. Because again, it was like, when we started our careers as white middle-class women, we had no problems getting in, but I didn't see many Black women. And, they never had a chance at a career. So many, it was very, very rare for them to really have if we had it hard, they had it 10 times harder. So again, this is a great opportunity for women who felt as though, for whatever reason that they never had a chance to have a career. These are entry level jobs, which again, in the UK is enough money to get you off benefits. In 2 to 3 years, you could double your salary. In 10 years, you could be earning a really, really nice salary. In 10 years, you could be on the board. It was like, that really is, and again, one of the problems that we've had is actually getting people to recognize that women are really quite prepared to start again. That, that they don't have the ego problems, that they really are quite humble to be able to say, what? I'm really quite prepared to take an entry-level job and give it another go because, last time I was playing on the slanted side with the sun in my eyes, it would be really nice to start again on the right side of the pitch.
Yes. Oh, awesome. Jane, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me and to share your enthusiasm and energy. What a treat. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to share this with our listeners.
Fantastic. Well, read the book, enjoy it, or get the audiobook. It's a lot of fun. Carol and I had so much fun recording it, and it was actually great. We had a review from Bernardina Evaristo, who was the first Black woman who won the Booker Prize. And she was like, it's so conversational. I felt as though I was sitting in the room with Jane and Carol. So, if you actually if you actually get the audio book, it is like sitting in that room with the two of us. We do chat it through.
That sounds wonderful. I love it. What a great format. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much again. I am really looking forward to sharing this with our audience. And don't forget to check out all the links at elkinsconsulting.com in the blog post associated with this podcast. Thank you.